I did not know kombucha was tea. Why does it have skin? He asks with the same disgust as, why does Sonic have human teeth?
Hello, and welcome to Let Me Look That Up, the show where we use the internet to try to answer life's trivial questions. I'm Tristan, and I'll be your host for today's episode.
I'm Allison, and I'm back with yet more pedantic food definitions for y'all.
And I'm Justin, and my phone just died, so no Google.
We've all been there. You're hanging out with a couple of friends, and suddenly a random question pops in your head. Like, how come pickles refers only to pickled cucumbers and not other pickled things?
That's when someone pulls out their phone to see if they can find an answer.
That's what the show's all about. Just a couple of friends trying to find answers to life's mysteries.
Finally, a friendly reminder. The three of us are, at best, hobbyists who are mostly relying on random stuff we found on the internet. Basically, we are crowdsourced, and no one is checking to make sure we're not being punked. So, Allison, I hear you've got some tea to spill today.
Yes, and the tea pun will make sense in a moment, but first, I've got a question for y'all. How do you feel about root beer?
It's okay.
I like it. There are different variations, though. Some I really love, but there's some that I'm like, I could go without that one. I think compared to other sodas, it has a wide variety of flavors where it could land.
I think, it's the type of soda that if it was in an aluminum can, I would not drink it. It has to be in a glass bottle. I know there's some beer breweries, I could say that, that make their own root beer, and that's pretty good. Those are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Justin, I think I'm in a similar boat to you. I didn't like root beer for a long time because pretty much all I had was Barks and A&W and whatever came out of the soda fountain. And then I discovered the world of specialty, small batch root beers. And then I was like, wait, this is actually really good.
Now, as a kid, I did like Barks and A&W and stuff, but then I don't know, grew out of it.
It's like cheese. You grow up on American cheese and then you experience cheddar and you're like, what is this magical cheese?
Yeah, and then American cheese just tastes like plastic every time you have it from now until forever.
I do want to add, though, I know of people who think, especially from the UK and New Zealand and those areas, that think root beer tastes like medicine.
I actually talked with my British friend of mine about this, and she's telling me that it does taste like medicine. Their childhood medicine, it isn't the fake cherry that we usually get in the United States. It's something that tastes a lot like root beer.
That's really interesting.
Huh.
We're drinking medicine.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's Dr. Pepper, so that's not a root beer, but
Right.
It's got to be medicine, right?
Right. And this is not something I did a whole lot of research into. The old formulations of different cough syrups and things like that from old pharmacists. Mm-hmm. I know that is where root beer came from originally. I'm sure a lot of other things did as well. But that's not actually why I asked you all here today to discuss. My real question is root beer a tea? And before we get there, I feel like I need to ask another question, which is, why would I ever think root beer might be a tea? Why am I raising this for discussion at all?
They're two very different things.
Yeah, we've already established that root beer is a soda. End of episode.
And scene. Yeah, so my husband actually got very into making root beer. So here's how the process for making root beer goes. You get a whole bunch of herbs and spices, and you stick it in a pot with some sugar, and you basically make a steeped syrup out of a whole lot of different herbs and spices. And
that's
then
crazy.
Yeah. And then you use that and you go on and either add it to carbonated water, which is where you get your beverages in kind of traditional soda fashion, or you add yeast and ferment it.
Wouldn't a fermented soda just be a beer?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can actually ferment things without getting a bunch of alcohol content in them. So there is a level of fermentation that just gets you to carbonation more than alcohol, but you can make it boozy too, which actually kind of makes me wonder about supposedly root beer came around because really grew in popularity because of prohibition and alcohol being outlawed, and this was like the safe alternative. So makes me wonder if anyone just took it too far and made really boozy root beer and was like, no, it's root beer. It's fine.
Just root beer. Which would also explain the hard root beers that were popular just a couple of years ago. I haven't seen them so much anymore, but just a couple of years ago, there was hard root beers everywhere. And it would make sense, like, if the process is just letting it ferment a little bit longer.
Why would you ferment something and not make it boozy, though? Because I feel like fermented things have that sort of bitter taste to them that you just sort of accept with alcohol. Like, if it wasn't alcoholic, then I don't think you would drink it, right?
That's where the sugar comes in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you don't have to get rid of all the sugar. And I did not get into like the details of fermentation in my research. So Tristan, if you wanted to scan for any of this, if you got something to add. But
yes, please tell me why you would ferment something and not make you drunk. Yes.
I mean, this is kind of me guessing, but it's a much more traditional method. So I'm guessing we didn't have a way to like put carbonation bubbles and things that wasn't fermenting them beforehand.
Oh, you know what it probably is? Going back to that episode with Adam about beer, probably like to get fresh water or keep a fresh hydration source available.
Without getting
Maybe that's
drunk.
why. What a sad time to live in.
That did show up in my research with speculation that early root beers. So like root beer's got a really long history, actually. It goes,
oh, really?
Yeah, it has a much more modern history and then a very long tradition. Like that the native peoples of the Americas tended to use a lot of the same like herbs and barks that are used in root beer. And they
is that where Barks gets its name?
I don't know. It might be.
It's a good catch.
Yeah. I mean, like, I can tell you when you like look at the stuff that's in root beer, it's stuff like sarsaparilla root bark, sassafras root bark, birch bark.
Ooh,
so
gotta
like,
be it. That's gotta be it.
yeah.
We're on to something here. I'm gonna be disappointed if that's somebody's name, and I'm sorry if that is your name, but you're a root.
Also very fitting.
Right.
So we've laid out that root beer is made through a fermentation process. But how does that even connect to the question that you asked of, is root beer tea?
Right.
Yeah, that's got my head spinning a bit.
Okay. Yeah. So it's that first step where you like put a bunch of stuff in water and boil it until flavor comes out, which is basically a tea making process.
Is it?
Are either of you guys invested in tea? Like what's your tea background? I asked you about your root beer background, but I didn't ask you about your tea background.
Yeah, I drink tea.
Okay.
My usual go-to is like chamomile because, you know, it helps me get to sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
And then green tea because I am part Japanese. That's not a good reason to drink green tea, though.
Yeah, I drink tea pretty regularly, kind of all varieties. But I typically drink black teas and sometimes herbals and such.
Now I'm thinking about sweet tea. Is that technically like just uncarbonated soda now?
Right.
It's sugar, water, and then whatever the leafy bits are.
Right.
Yeah. Which I guess that means we need to find that line of what is tea and what is soda, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, and maybe even also look up, because I remember hearing a story it was a couple years ago that they started classifying brisk as not tea.
Whoa.
Okay, so I may have some insight on this one, not brisk specifically. So Tristan, feel free to jump in on that. But I do need to lay down something before the tea experts come and yell at us, which is tea is specifically one plant. So there is a tea plant. It's called, this is my turn to have fun pronouncing things I don't pronounce normally, Camellia sinensis. That plant, processed different ways, is how you get black tea. It's how you get white tea, oolong, green tea. All of these are from the same plant, just processed different ways. And so the bossy tea people get very mad if you use the word tea to refer to things. So Justin, in your earlier example, you're like chamomile for sleep. There are some people out there that would get mad at referring to chamomile as tea. Green tea is just
really?
fine because it has that thing in there.
Yeah.
I found this quote from the Tea Association of the USA in the glossary of terms. And they said tea, the leaf and extracted liquor of the shrub Camellia sinensis. No other beverages merit the unqualified term tea.
Oh my gosh. That's so aggressive.
It sounds just right for people who are experts at tea.
Yes.
That's so aggressive because I always thought, tea, it's supposed to have a calming effect on you and relaxing and everything. And then this is just so angry.
Not if you're a part of the Tea Association of the USA. They're trying to protect their brand. Yeah. So there's another word called tisane, which refers to as an herbal infusion. So in deference to the tea experts, my real question should be, is root beer a tisane, not a tea? Because it's definitely not a tea, because it doesn't have Camellia sinensis.
Yeah, that tea committee would be so upset with you right now.
Right.
That you would even infer that root beer is a tea.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tea Association of the USA. And every other tea expert that sticks with that definition.
I wonder if coffee people get this angry.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, has anyone tried to use a plant that's not the coffee bean to refer to coffee and be like, oh, I've got my chicory coffee.
Yeah, it's like that.
Well,
that and
let's get controversial for a moment. Is coffee also a tisane?
Yeah. I feel like that's another episode.
I feel like tea people would say that coffee is a tisane. I feel like coffee people would have some things to say about that.
No.
Let's put these two in the ring.
Right.
I want to see them fight it out.
Fight. Justin, I really think you're onto something with carbonation because, carbonation, it's a key element of root beer. If you just gave me like a flat root beer flavored beverage, I'd be like,
you're feeding me medicine.
This is bad root beer. This is British medicine.
You're trying to poison me.
Right. What is this? What is all this bark you given me? I really feel like a fundamental part of root beer is the fact.
Ooh, what if we carbonated tea?
Yeah. So kombucha is a carbonated tea made by fermentation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's black tea, it's sugar, it's kombucha bacteria, which is a kind of a yeasty thing. And it's all stuck together until it's a little bit fizzy. Most of the sugar gets eaten and turned into vinegar, but not all the way to alcohol most times, unless you get hard kombucha.
Wow, I did not know kombucha was tea.
Yeah. And it does have the Camellia sinensis plant in it. So it's legit.
Tea committee is appeased.
Yeah.
Approved.
Yes.
They even approve of that gross little skin that gets on the top of it too.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone actually approves of that.
I'm starting to not become fans of this tea committee.
Right. I did not actually, in case someone from the Tea Association of the USA is listening to it, I did not actually look into their feelings on kombucha. That was outside of the scope of my research.
But by the guidelines provided,
yes,
it is a tea.
Yeah, the extracted liquor of the shrub Camellia sinensis
is in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I feel like it kind of comes back to like how in your hearts you feel about carbonated tea. So I think where I'm coming down on the is root beer a tisane is kombucha a tea. And so they're really, really kind of the same. However, as I was looking this up, a little bit more of the recent history of root beer stood out. And I wanted to share with you something I found that informs the topic. So this is from a thoughtco.com article on the history of root beer. And it says, according to his biography, there's this guy, Charles Elmer Hines, who is one of the first folks that actually like produced root beer as root beer, like named it root beer, did that thing. So he's like not the first person that made stuff with the herbs, but he was like the marketing guy, the first one that actually rolled it out as root beer. Probably
had like one of those snake oil wagons and stuff back in the 1800s.
Yeah. He was a pharmacist. So he was one of the people doing the pharmacy. And
A lot of sodas have a pharmaceutical background.
Exactly.
Very
And
true.
root beer is one of them. The Heinz version was originally sold as a type of medicine.
Heinz root beer? Like ketchup?
Yeah, is his name
Oh.
spelled like the ketchup?
Oh, shoot. I might have it wrong. His name is Hires, and I was reading it wrong the whole time.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Hires is his name.
Okay.
So Hires was selling it as medicine and was originally trying to sell it as Hires Herb Tea. That was the original name that he was trying to sell it under. And it says that he actually got the idea from finding a delicious tisane, an herbal tea blend, on his honeymoon. So he found a tea blend that he really liked and was like, I'm gonna do something with that.
So that means root beer has been a tea since the very beginning.
The whole time.
Wow.
Yeah, but then a buddy of his, Dr. Russell Cornwell, reportedly told him, "You're trying to sell this to coal miners. Coal miners are not going to drink something called Hires Herbed Tea. But if you call it beer, and reportedly, that is why Hires named it root beer." Because he was trying to sell it to coal miners.
Wow.
Huh.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Because coal miners aren't as picky as the tea committee.
Right.
Yeah, they don't have the rules set out as much.
Right. Gotcha.
But if it's beer, they're all about it. So, yeah, from one way of looking at it, root beer
So
has
does-
been tea the whole time.
Does then that mean hold on. Hold on. I can formulate this question. Hold on. Does that mean that all sodas are then tea?
Right. Yeah, that is, I guess, really what I'm bringing to y'all today. Because that was, if kombucha's a tea, then all sodas are tisanes.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean,
Yeah.
root beer is sort of the oldest of the sodas, right?
It's clearly one of the OG ones. All this stuff was going down. Let me see if I can find a date. 1893. Oh,
Okay, so-
1867 was the first version for Mr. Hires. So
Well, then that probably means that Mountain Dew is green tea, right?
no, it's a tisane. I'm pretty sure it does not have
It doesn't have tea in it.
Camellia sinensis.
Unless that's how it gets its caffeination, but I doubt that.
So if you mixed green tea and well, that's technically just mixed green tea with Mountain Dew. That's disgusting.
Yeah, that would be an experience.
I don't know where I'm going with that one, but I'm saying is that we've landed on that Mountain Dew is a green tisane.
Yes, I think so.
That's so bizarre. We need to bring this to the tea committee.
Yeah.
Tea committee.
Was there a
I need you to-
Tisane committee? Like, is there a different committee, or are they the same committee?
Hey, what if you did just put green tea in Mountain Dew and started marketing it as the new specialty tea? Could you get it to be a health blend? Do you think we could get it all the way around so like Mountain Dew is a health drink?
I'm sure we could try real hard.
Oh, what about energy drinks like Monster or Red Bull?
Yeah.
That really does start to open up a lot of questions of
Yeah.
like a lot of drinks. We extract flavors from different things in different ways,
Mostly plants.
mostly plants, and then we put it into a beverage.
And I'm pretty sure there's a ton of energy drinks out there that have that one specific tea flower in it. Mixed
Oh,
in with a
yeah.
bunch of other stuff.
So
Right.
are basically all flavored drinks, do they come down to being a tea or tisane?
I mean, I think part of this you have to come back to like language has to work to facilitate communication. And I feel like at the point where you are calling all soda tisanes, language is no longer facilitating communication.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it all just becomes juice water.
right.
Allison, I feel like every time you
know.
come onto this show, you really just break our brains with the understanding of how we define things.
My fundamental question is an existential crisis. Maybe next time I'll find something that has an actual for reals answer. But sometimes you just got to enjoy the mystery.
Yeah. Well, I do feel like this one has a kind of an answer of root beer did originate as a tea or a tisane of sorts. Mm-hmm. But we also had some other questions pop up. Some of them are probably way beyond our ability to research or get into. But there are a couple that we asked. The fermentation process. And then we were also talking about the like oldest sodas. Does that make root beer like the first or one of the first? So give me a moment. I'm going to see what I can find.
All right.
And Justin,
Please go
ahead and tell our listeners how they can support the show.
Yeah. We love making the show and we love coffee, and we need your help with both. The very best thing you can do to help us out is to tell a friend or two about the show, not our love of coffee. For those of you who like the idea of getting us hyped up on caffeine, you can support us by donating at buymeacoffee.com/letmelookthatup. There you can give a one-time donation or become a monthly supporter by selecting the membership option. Recently, Anonymous donated at Buy Me a Coffee and said, "Get yourselves a website already." Well, Anonymous, thanks to you, we now have a real, legit website where you can find everything Let Me Look That Up. Keep an eye out over there as we release new, exclusive content just for the website. I guess now we'll have to buy some actual coffee to celebrate. Let's check out a review. Listener Look It's Monster on Apple Podcasts said, "This podcast is so fun. Lots of interesting topics. My life is busy, and I don't have time to look up certain subjects. I would go on with life not knowing all the facts, but Let Me Look That Up quantifies the ins and outs of all the questions we asked with the homies. After each episode, I have newfound knowledge. Great podcast. That's what we're here for. And hey, don't forget to ask us your questions. We might just look them up for you." So, Big T, you got some answers for us? It's either Tristan or I'm calling out that T committee again. You want to go, Big T?
Big T!
Well, I don't know if the T committee has answers for you.
They better. If they want to stay in power, they better get me some answers.
Can I stay in power by giving you some answers
Yeah,
here?
please do.
All right. So I did a quick search, see what I could find. So we'll take them one by one. But first, I'm going to plug in. We talked about Barks and thought like, oh, is Barks named Barks?
Yeah, is that his
bark?
His name, or is it the bark in the root beer?
It was invented by Edward Charles Edmund Bark Sr.
You have way too many names.
Yeah.
You just pick one. Just be like Ed Bark. It's fine.
I mean, at least he didn't name the root beer all those names. You know, at least he stuck
Maybe
with
he
Barks.
did.
Oh, maybe that was the first draft.
Yeah. Maybe he did, and we're just not reading the label all the way through.
Yeah, it's Ed Chuck Ed Bark.
His name is a tongue twister.
How much Ed would Ed Chuck Ed if Ed Chuck could Chuck Bark?
I'm torn between being disappointed that it's not named after all the barks that make up an ingredient of root beer.
Yeah.
And like, I always have a certain amount of satisfaction when someone goes into a profession related to their last name. So I guess good on you, Mr. Bark.
It works. Yeah. So the next question, which we can hit real quick, was the fermentation process, because you had said that kombucha has that vinegary taste, and according to popsci.com, the process of fermentation, the sugars convert into an alcohol, and then they ferment into a vinegar. So vinegar is the next half.
Is the last part. Okay.
So does that mean kombucha goes through alcoholic and then it's on the downside?
If you stop kombucha early, do you just have boozy
maybe
tea?
That's
Boozy tea.
Yeah, maybe that's
Why did you go all the way to kombucha?
Yeah.
We already figured out there's boozy kombucha. Maybe that's what it is they just stopped the process at that spot.
Stop the process.
Or they just added in. I feel like they just added in because it's already a mix of a bunch of stuff.
And then the last question is Hires Root Beer, the first soda.
Yeah.
Allison, what was the year roughly that you had for...
So according to my research, he introduced his version of root beer to the public at the 1876 Philadelphia Centennial Exhibition.
All right.
Aha!
That matches the information that I have. So,
Cool.
Hires Root Beer, 1876. number 3 on this list. The things that come before it are ginger beers.
Fair.
Or ginger ale.
Yeah.
Werner's Ginger Ale was created in 1866. So
a decade earlier.
Before then. And then there's one that we are all very familiar with, actually. And it looks like it's just all varieties of flavors because it doesn't specify a specific one, but I think it's a ginger ale.
It's Fanta.
Schweppes.
Okay.
All right.
Any guesses on how much earlier Schweppes was invented?
Root beer at 1876, ginger ale at 1866, Schweppes at
1856. It's got to be just an even 10, right?
I'm going to go with like 1792.
1783.
Dang!
So it's as old as the United States.
Yeah. I mean,
That's amazing.
I feel like Schweppes marketing team should get on this. Like, I feel like that should be something I'm aware of.
It was founded in Geneva and then moved to London in 92. So your 1792 was when they moved to London, but they were around almost a decade longer than that. So yeah.
Fascinating.
I just came up with another question. Ginger is a root. Why isn't it root beer?
Yeah, like root beer should be root beer.
Beer.
Ginger is the root beer.
That is an excellent question.
I will say that one of the root beer recipes I looked up from nourishedkitchen.com has ginger root as a part as one of the ingredients. So
what's the difference between ginger beer and root beer then?
I feel like root beer should be renamed roots beer.
Well, Allison, can you remind us what we should have learned today?
All right. Root beer, whether or not it is a tisane, it's definitely not a tea. Root beer is not a tea because that'll make the tea people. Right. We don't want to upset the tea committee. It might be a tisane. It depends on how you feel about carbonation in tea. I feel like if you think that kombucha is a tea, you should probably come down on the side that root beer is a tisane. But if you're going, no, tea is one thing, kombucha is another thing, a tisane is something else, and so is root beer, you're valid too. But it's got more in common than you might think.
And on top of that, we discovered that root beer is actually one of the first sodas invented, and Schweppes being even older than that, which
almost a whole century.
Fascinating. Yeah.
And Edward Charles Edmund Bark Sr. has quite the name.
And got into an appropriate profession.
But wait, there's more. The learning doesn't just stop because we've covered our topic today. Listeners have done the real work of looking things up, and we wanted to share a few with you.
This is Listener Lookups.
Our lookup for today comes from listener Great Pasta Heist, who writes in, "Hey guys, actually, the reason avocados have giant seeds is because of giant sloths."
What?
Yeah, they used to eat avocados and the seeds could go through their digestive system and that would spread the seeds around. And so I looked that up a little bit and that is true. There's actually a lot of plants that have some giant fruit that were originally designed to be eaten by megafauna. And so it seems entirely likely that avocados evolved in conjunction with giant sloths, and that those two things were buddies. And the reason avocados survived the extinction of the giant sloths is because by that time humans had started enjoying them and made sure they stuck around.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, the first website I found about this was from a sloth conservation website that suggests you eat an avocado in support of sloths.
So Big Sloth is behind
yes.
avocados.
It's
Big,
also
so
from sciencenorway.no, which looks like Norway's official website. So I'm a little bit more likely to trust that one. But
the sloths have infiltrated Norway.
And we're back to conspiracy theories. Okay.
Can you grow avocados in Norway? I feel like it's too cold.
Greenhouses, maybe?
I'm starting another episode again. Stop there.
This is the problem about getting a bunch of people that are interested in facts on a podcast together.
We have so many questions. It's the whole point of this podcast.
Well, we know that you might have questions too, and we want you to join the discussion. Send us a message on our social media with your thoughts on today's topic, or the questions that keep you up at night that you think should also keep me up at night. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Let Me Look That Up, and on Facebook at Let Me Look That Up Pod.
Again, if you like the show, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. If you enjoy listening to us looking that up, you can support the show at buymeacoffee.com/letmelookthatup.
All our links are in the description or on our website, letmelookthatup.com.
Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Let Me Look That Up. I'm Tristan.
I'm Allison.
I'm Justin.
Wait, brain no worky anymore.